Last week we got our cabin top permanently bonded down with that methacrylate, but there are a few things I forgot to mention in that video before we closed out. We have gotten all of the cleats out now, and if you can tell, you know, up in here it's not the prettiest finish. We didn't go through and try and smooth out the edges, and that's because we won't be seeing anything from this point or above, because we are going to do a drop down overhead that's going to cover this entire surface, so no need to ferret or worry about those edges. And also with that propane heater we were running to get this space up to a warm temperature. Some of you were worried about carbon monoxide, and we do have a detector that we keep in here. I forgot to mention it in the other episodes. Always want to keep ourselves safe from that. So just a couple of questions from the last week that I wanted to answer now before we move on to this next exciting project that Matt is about to take over while I go edit.
Now that the cabin top is bonded in place and we still have a couple of days of nice weather, we're going to try to get that beam, which runs right down the center line and adds the compression support, basically from the mast to this beam here, so it prevents it from being pulled in forward. This particular bulkhead being pulled in forward because of the load on the main sheet, and basically everything that's going to be aft here puts in tons of load on the mast. What this beam is doing is it's preventing this bulkhead from being pulled towards the mast. Now you can imagine all the halyards, all that kind of stuff are coming down the mast, running along the side deck to the winches back here. When we pull on the winches and we tighten everything up, that's trying to pull this whole thing forward, basically. So the idea is with this beam is it goes right down the center line. Of course, it gives just general support for this, but it also helps prevent this bulkhead from being able to move at all or bend. So that's the idea here. What we'll end up doing is we'll end up getting this surface all prep that, bonded in the same way we've been doing all of this, and then we have another one that goes aft here that ends up giving that support for the traveler then. Today I got to make sure that it fits, get that all set. Probably going to need to trim a little bit away. I think we are about 1/4 of an inch off from what the design plans are from that forward area here. I have set up a couple of stands to try to get this in place by myself and just figure out exactly how it's going to work, but we'll see. I have no clue. I don't know if it's going to work. The front window frame area and this are exactly parallel, so if I trim it for this section right here running fore and aft, it will fit in there. Because of that compression post, I do need to make an outline where the mast is going to go, where that compression post actually fits, and cut that out of this beam as well. But right now I just want to get it trimmed where I can actually fit it in this area, and then I can go through and start doing the rest of it. Just a bit too long. Now that top, this beam is not parallel, so that is going to change once I do figure out how to get it parallel. My goal is then to lower this down and hopefully get it in this pocket, and then slowly raise them up together so it is absolutely straight, and see what happens.
The last stage in general preparations was to sand down the fiberglass surface of the cabin top, which would remove any potential resins from the surface, as well as give it a grip for the bonding agent to adhere to. Today we have the project of bonding up the beams, so the forward one that goes, of course, across the bend of the cabin top is sitting inverted over there, and Matt is just trying to work out the last bits of conduit because it kind of sucked to get it in place and then realize we can't run anything through it.
Yeah, these edges are really sharp, and had I thought about it, at least would have filed down the edges a bit, but that's okay because we're using some conduit for that. In this section, I'm just going to have 2 wires for lighting, not a big deal at all. The aft section though is there's going to be solar running through that. So we do have our big conduit that will be running fore and aft that direction. Yeah, so that's it. And so,
and all the surfaces prepped and keyed. I just went through and sanded the top of the compression post there. That's scratching up the conduit. Haha, fun lighting. And then we'll use the tube of methacrylate to get the fast cure stuff on in the conduit before we bonded the beams. Time for the very important string runs, because otherwise we won't be able to access these tubes once they're in place.
yes, this is gonna be fun. Just gonna make sure we didn't tangle anything because I gotta bring one through this side. Okay, my dear.
Through the tube. There it goes. Now we've got it run through the other pipe that's going to attach to the compression post, and Matt's just tying the washer on once more because that is too big to fit through the little pipe there, so we don't have to worry about it
Pulling out from the side.
Yeah, so it's acting as a stopper. So, ain't going nowhere. The long forward tube is temporarily in place, being held up with a U-clamp, just so we can keep the string up there. And Matt's going to use the tube of quick bond methacrylate to get that piece.
Get this guy up in place.
And within 10 minutes it should be fully cured, which means we can then work on these. Let's get this going crazy. Wedges are in place, injecting just a little bit more around the edges, and then we leave this to set as we go do the aft beam.
Come down just and watch it because it's putting pressure. All right, come down a little bit. Okay, so you can see this line right here?
Yep.
That's what you're lining, well, you're lining up with that end. So try to get it so we get it right the first time. Right, so hold please.
See the key points that we've got it squirted in there, where the extension is, and then right back here. So this will be enough to kind of get a good bond to hold it in place, and then later we'll go through with the other methacrylate, the slow cure, and just fill the gaps. We now have all the conduit stuck into place with U-clamps and then just little injections of that fast cure methacrylate that Matt is trying to finish up the tube right now.
Which I just did.
Didn't get us too far, but far enough, let's hope.
Yeah, I thought I had more in here, but...
I mean, the good news about this stuff, though, is once it bonds, it's solid.
And then what we'll do is we'll take the normal stuff, the gray stuff we do, and squeeze it into these other pieces, because the last thing we want is this conduit to ever fall down, because it'll create all kinds of noise in that beam that we can't get to again.
Just come back after lunch, so let this sit for 20 minutes or so, and it seems to be holding up all right. Matt took out the cleats from under this, and it's still holding up well. So now I get to do a dry fit of these pieces before I mix the other methacrylate. Start bonding it up. We've just completed a dry fit of both of the beams, forward and aft, just to make sure that after putting up the conduit, everything was still fitting into place. And we've got the laser now. So we have markings on the compression post. There's marking in the aft cockpit seat. Just making sure everything's gonna line up. Giving it a sand now. Let's do a wipe. Mix up the methacrylate and get ready to bond them into place.
I don't know if we're going to be able to get...
Yeah, hopefully, I mean, we'll have enough for at least one beam, but I don't think we can get another 2 liters out of. Got the hardening agent here. One of the 2-liter buckets after doing like a little squirting in just to fill the cracks there. Put a couple of long beads along there. Put it up and see if there's enough for that.
Oh, you all ready for this?
Yep, it's got a brand new oil radiator. That puts out a lot of heat. Once the 2 parts of the methacrylate were mixed together, we'd have about a 90-minute window to get everything in place before the substance would begin to harden on us. With such a large flange to bond to the cabin top at 6 inches wide, Matt wanted to get 2 large beads applied to each side. This way, when it is compressed against the cabin top, the beads should spread out evenly to cover the entire surface. And the beam is looking nicely coated, and then once it's flat it should spread out, even might have a little leaking out. And so Matt's just squirting a little bit more into some of the gaps of the conduit that we put up. Oh yeah, I think we'll have enough. With the remaining mixed methacrylate, Matt squeezed it into any open gaps along the conduit tube. Although the beads of fast cure should be enough to keep it in place, we don't want to underestimate the forces applied here once we're out sailing. So we just have to be very careful too not to knock into the laser because it has everything perfectly aligned right now.
Perfect.
Alright.
So I gotta get my cup.
Yep. I have to get my thing here. Oh, I got some things.
Using one of the yard's jack stands, Matt was able to apply an upward pressure on the beam, which would push it the last few millimeters into place, as well as help hold it there until the methacrylate could cure. Get some nice squeeze out on this side after the cleats are going in. then it was time to follow the same steps on the cockpit beam. It is a beautiful and calm day here on the Chesapeake, nice and sunny and warm. And what also makes me really excited is now the beam has set overnight. So we're gonna go check on it, see how it did, and then talk to you about our next steps of what we can move on to. First nice thing is that the lights are back in place instead of sitting on our countertops. But you can tell Matt has gone through now and removed all of the cleats. We've got the jack stand out of the way, so it's sitting up on its own. And then it looks like in the aft there still have just one of the jack stands kind of keeping it in place. And last night we got everything cleaned up. We're back in our boat having dinner, and that's like, we forgot to put the backing plate onto the beam that runs transverse across the aft of the cabin top, which the traveler is going to be sitting on. And of course that needs a lot of strength because there's going to be so much upward force on it. So this next week we're going to be kind of like cutting out a section and bonding that in because we forgot it yesterday or before. So whoopsie on that. And then the next couple of projects that we're going to be able to do, let me take you over those. You can see that this seat back here on the settee has not been faired at all. In fact, it's not even bonded in. And that's because we had to wait for the compression post to go in, obviously, to slide in before we could put that. But in the locker that sits right in front of it, here, there's a backing plate that attaches to the other side of that. But when we got it back from the welder, it wasn't fitting perfectly. It needed about 3/8 of an inch to come off before it can fit in that space because it's within a locker. So we dropped that back off to the welder. He's gonna chop that a little bit off, get it back to us. So we'll get that bonded in. Then we can permanently bond the seat in here, get that faired out, which will then allow us to finish working on this whole area, which we haven't done for probably like the past 9 months. And then something Matt has been toiling over for a long time is right behind me here is where the raised helm is going to be. So we can finally start to build that up since the cabin top is permanently bonded down. We're thinking of doing kind of like a cabinet there, which is going to hold a lot of like the cables and wiring. Steps will go here up to there. So what you can tell also is that the cutout that originally came from the factory is going to be moved. So that's going to be a lot of steps in itself, but things are going to keep us busy. Something new that's not necessarily just fairing out and painting. Of course, this salon still will be, but we're not really going to show you much of that. So we've got a lot of exciting things coming up, and then hopefully paint will start going on. We'll get to plumbing, electronics, all of that fun stuff. So lots of great things coming, and thanks for watching.